Right on target. Ukraine strikes the Votkinsk plant with Flamingo missiles where Iskanders and Oreshniks are produced. And Tatarstan has been under a massive attack by Ukrainian drones since early morning. Air defense is in a panic. A helicopter carrying security forces crashed in the Amur region. The United States is pressuring Kyiv and demanding the withdrawal of the Ukrainian armed forces from Donbas. What does Zelensky say? In Ukraine, a draft law on holding elections during wartime is being secretly prepared. While we are fighting Russia, Orban and Fico are fighting against us. Hungary is blocking the EU's €90 billion loan, and Slovakia is already threatening to stop electricity supplies as early as Monday. The Kremlin boasts about stability while Russian businesses are quietly sinking. Half of the major companies are in the red and are already preparing to lay people off. Tensions are rising. Migrants have rebelled against the traditionalist Russians. The level of hatred is simply off the charts. My name is Anastasia Dimitrovskaya, and right now I'll tell you about the main things. But first, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose touch with you on YouTube. Hundreds of drones effectively struck military targets deep behind enemy lines, but the Ministry of Defense of the aggressor country, as usual, claimed that on the night of February 21st, their air defense allegedly intercepted and destroyed 77 Ukrainian drones over Russian regions as well as over occupied Crimea and the waters of the Sea of Azov. At the same time, social media reported a devastating strike on the Iskander missile plant in Votkinsk, Russia, in the Republic of Udmurtia. First of all, that's more than 1,400 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. And secondly, this is one of Russia's most important defense enterprises, which was personally visited by Putin himself at one time. What is special about this plant? They manufacture nuclear launch systems there, intercontinental missiles like the Topol-M, as well as rocket engines for Russian missiles such as the Iskander and intercontinental ballistic missiles, particularly for the Yars. The Ukrainian General Staff has already confirmed the strike on the Votkinsk plant. They reported that the plant was attacked with Flamingo missiles.
Unbelievable. Somewhere else too.
Meanwhile, the day before, the co-owner of Firepoint, the company that produces the Flamingo, had published a promising video teaser of the attack. A video without context. The context was later provided by Stielerman. It was probably a hint at the attack on Votkinsk in Russia. The head of Udmurtia also confirmed the strike on one of the facilities. According to him, there was damage and casualties. At the same time, he claims that the facility was allegedly attacked by drones.
Hello, friends. One of the facilities in Udmurtia was attacked by drones. As a result, there is damage and there are casualties. All necessary assistance is being provided to them. All emergency services are currently working at the scene. I will keep you fully informed as soon as any new information becomes available. I kindly ask everyone to remain calm and not to panic, and to refrain from spreading unverified information. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
Also, as reported by Cyberboroshno, as a result of the strike on the Grayu arsenal in Kitlikuban with Flamingo missiles, a bunker with an area of 3,600 square meters was destroyed. But that's not all. In the Samara region, our drones attacked the Neftegorsky gas processing plant. A large-scale fire broke out at the site, and it was reported that several of the plant's storage tanks were burning at once. Guys,
I want to go home.
Let's wait longer.
I want to go home.
Ioannis. And as has become tradition, things were heated again in the Russian city of Belgorod. Online sources are reporting yet another missile attack on the city. Governor Gladkov reported strikes on critical infrastructure. Also, on Saturday morning, Tatarstan came under a massive attack by our Shaheds. Yes, you heard that right. Social media reports say that Ukraine has started launching Shaheds at Russia at distances reaching as far as Tatarstan. Let me remind you, that's a full 2,000 kilometers. In addition, in the morning, a fire broke out at the Elektrovipria Mitels SSP special converter plant in Saransk, Mordovia, Russia. The enterprise produces power electronics, rectifiers, inverters, power supplies, converters, and other specialized electrical equipment. The company's products are used in industry and in Russia's military-industrial complex. Well, what can I say? I definitely like this kind of news. The armed forces of Ukraine once again prove that Ukrainian sanctions against Russia are the most powerful. Like this video, if you agree. Russia deployed its unparalleled Ka-52 attack helicopters, each costing about $16 million against Ukrainian drones. Propaganda immediately released a video report claiming 25 Ukrainian drones were shot down in just 2 sorties. But in these frames, you can see that these were Maya decoy drones, specifically designed to overload Russian air defenses. And while the Ka-52s were chasing false targets, Russian propagandists revealed the aircraft with its tail number, effectively exposing the base location, which, by the way, is within range of Ukrainian missiles. So, Russians, get ready. Looks like you'll be having visitors soon. Reading the comments under previous episodes, I see that many of you are watching us from Kazakhstan, Moldova, Europe, and even the States. We Ukrainians are very grateful for your support and proud that we have such reasonable viewers. Also, leave a comment under this episode telling us which country you're watching from and whether you support our fight against the empire of evil. I always enjoy reading your comments. Meanwhile, we're moving on to the most interesting part. And now about the situation at the front. The situation in Kostiantynivka is becoming more complicated. As reported by the soldier with the call sign Machnoy, the northern and northwestern outskirts are under active influence from Russian strike assets. According to Machnoy, logistics are now under enemy fire control and every movement requires caution. Analysts from Deep State also speak about the enemy's pressure on this section of the front.
Simultaneously with Pokrovsk and Mirnograd, the enemy is increasing its pressure in Kostiantynivka. This is a logical continuation of the objectives they have set for themselves. And now, it turns out, the pressure is coming not only from the east-southern part, but the southwest has been added as well.
Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces are striking the enemy along the entire front line. On the night of February 21st in Crimea near Inkerman, 2 Project 22 460 Okhotnik border patrol ships were hit. And in Yevpatoria, on the territory of the Yevpatoria aircraft repair plant, 2 aircraft were hit. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, our Cossacks from Tizmadyar, the drone systems unit, destroyed an enemy Tornado-S multiple launch rocket system right at its firing position. According to our fighters, this is the nastiest and most powerful machine among the Russian multiple launch rocket systems such as the Grad, Uragan and Smerch. The Tornado-S is essentially a modernized Smerch with a range of up to 120 kilometers and high-precision rockets. It is precisely these systems that regularly terrorize cities like Kharkiv, Zaporizhzhia, Sumy, Kherson and Nikopol. But now the Russians have one less of these gadgets. A big thank you to our Titans from the drone systems unit and to all the defense forces. In Ukraine, a version of a draft law on holding elections during wartime is being secretly prepared. This is not at all what the deputies are officially working on. That is, not post-war elections, according to Deputy Nina Yuzhanina. We're talking specifically about elections during the war, where the option of special polling stations for the military is being considered.
Working groups are working on creating a draft law on post-war elections. And I've heard this opinion from colleagues that we are working openly, but it won't be their draft law that gets voted on. In other words, another draft is being written somewhere, and it will be the key one, not the one the deputies are working on. I don't know the details, but it's clear that there will be some kind of special polling stations for the military. So this kind of discussion is happening, preparations are underway, and the authorities don't see anything wrong with it.
Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that the US and Russia are putting pressure on Kyiv, demanding that the armed forces of Ukraine withdraw from Donbas. According to AFP, both countries are also insisting on holding presidential elections as part of the peace settlement plan. If you want the war to end tomorrow, the Americans and the Russians are suggesting to leave Donbas, Zelensky said. And what do you think about the statements from Zelensky and Yuzhanina? Write your thoughts, don't hold back in the comments. The anti-Ukrainian campaign from Budapest is gaining new momentum. After Orban was accused of political blackmail with the diesel blockade and the pre-election video, there's a new blow. This time, Hungary has blocked an EU loan for Ukraine worth 90 billion euros. This was reported by the Financial Times. At the last moment, Budapest opposed the decision on a joint EU budget guarantee. For Kyiv to receive the loan, unanimous consent from all 27 countries is required. The publication writes that the 90 billion euro package was agreed upon by EU leaders back in December as a financial cushion for Ukraine amid the ongoing war, while Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic agreed to support the loan on the condition that they would not be responsible for the interest and repayment. The cost was supposed to be borne by the other EU countries. Without these funds, writes the Financial Times, Ukraine could face a budget deficit as early as April. The IMF program, worth 8 billion euros, is also at risk. It is directly linked to receiving European financial assistance. For his part, Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó stated that Budapest will unblock the EU's 90 billion euro loan for Ukraine after the resumption of oil transit through the Druzhba pipeline. He wrote about this on the social network X.
We are blocking the EU's 90 billion euro loan for Ukraine until the transit of oil to Hungary through the Druzhba pipeline resumes. Ukraine is blackmailing Hungary by obstructing the transit of oil in coordination with Brussels and the Hungarian opposition in order to cause supply disruptions in Hungary and raise fuel prices ahead of the elections. By blocking the transit of oil to Hungary through the Druzhba pipeline, Ukraine is violating the association agreement between the EU and Ukraine, disregarding its obligations to the European Union. We will not give in to this blackmail.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
And the cherry on top. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico has threatened to stop electricity supplies to Ukraine if Zelensky does not resume oil transportation by Monday. Meanwhile, instead of the Druzhba oil pipeline damaged by a Russian attack, Ukraine is offering the EU to use other elements of its oil transportation infrastructure for the transit of oil to Hungary and Slovakia, specifically the Odessa-Brody pipeline. On this occasion, I would like to remind the especially gifted that it was Russia who attacked the Druzhba oil pipeline. So to blackmail and accuse Ukraine of stopping the pipeline's operation is not only unreasonable, but also extremely cynical. And what do you think about the latest Hungarian and Slovak blackmail? In the Amur region, a helicopter carrying representatives of Russian security forces has crashed. It is known that the helicopter was found only 2 days after the crash, and besides the pilot, there was an investigator and a police officer on board. All of them died.
There were 3 people on board, the pilot and 2 passengers, law enforcement officers who were supposed to return from operational and investigative activities, reported the East Siberian Transport Prosecutor's Office.
Russian media report that the investigation is considering technical failure or pilot error as the main possible causes of the incident.
The flight was not officially registered and took place without notifying air navigation authorities. The pilot of the Robinson helicopter that crashed in the Amur region did not have the right to operate the aircraft, reports one of the Russian media outlets, citing a statement from the East Siberian Transport Prosecutor's Office.
And what do you think could have caused the helicopter crash? Pilot error, mechanical failure, or perhaps someone settling personal scores? While the Kremlin draws pretty graphs of stability, Russian businesses are quietly groaning. The Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs. These are not some opposition figures, but quite official men in suits, conducted a survey among large companies. The result is this. The crisis is growing and more than half of the firms ended 2025 with losses. Almost everyone has slashed investments, only 19% continued as usual, a third cut back significantly, another third cut back a little, and 15% froze everything altogether. And now, the highlight of this whole story, 3/4 complain about huge non-payments from state corporations. In a word, classic. Many city-forming factories have already switched people to part-time work, and in the second half of 26, mass layoffs will most likely begin. In the most severe cases, hello bankruptcy. Rostat confirms that in the 11 months of 25, business profits fell by 5.5%. Oil and gas, minus 55%. In the automotive industry, profits have fallen fourfold. Coal producers have posted a record loss in history. Out of 28 sectors, only 7 are in the black, and 3 of those are the defense industry. The rest, well, you get the idea. The government traditionally promises a growth of 1.3% this year. But we all know the truth. I wonder how much longer they'll pretend that everything is under control. Meanwhile, Putin is preparing to forcibly send another 2 million Russians to the front. Details in our report.
Russians are once again packing their bags, storming the borders and fleeing the country en masse. And all this is because Putin, it seems, has dared to launch a new wave of mobilization, followed by mogrilization, sending people to their graves.
This task will be finished and done with very great speed.
According to a report by the Institute for the Study of War, the Russian dictator is already creating the informational conditions to resume a limited, staggered call-up of reservists. In this way, Russia is trying to compensate for the colossal losses at the front
We do not consider ourselves responsible for the deaths of people.
There are three categories of people in Russia who are subject to conscription. First, these are men between the ages of 18 and 30. No matter how much the Kremlin might want to, they officially cannot be sent to the combat zone. There are also citizens in the reserve, those who have already completed their service. But in order to conscript them as well, a presidential decree on the next stage of partial mobilization is required, something the bunker dweller, fearing public outrage, will not do.
I want to offer you my apologies. I want to apologize to you.
But there is also a third category of conscripts in the Russian Federation, reservists. These are the ones the Kremlin intends to mobilize to the front, to plug the gaps in the defense. And that's when the Kremlin remembered those very reservists.
It accidentally slipped out during the casual conversation that I was having with a military audience.
In 2015, Putin created the so-called Mobilization Reserve. Currently, its number stands at 2 million people. Who are these people? They are those who have served in the army and have so-called military occupational specialties. After their mandatory service, such specialists were invited into the reserve, where they were promised a monthly allowance and supposedly nothing was asked of them in return. But that's only supposedly.
They are paid some money for this. Previously it was a small amount, but now they promise to increase these payments. In return, reservists take on the obligation to participate in regular military training and improve their combat readiness.
They were certainly enticed. Now, during this last autumn and again in late December, the President signed a significant series of official decrees. The core essence of these documents is that these specific reservists, that is to say, the people already included in the formal mobilization reserve, can be sent to so-called special training sessions.
But by 2026, through some simple manipulations in the Russian State Duma, the concept of special training sessions was blurred to such an extent that out of the reservists who once signed a contract with the Russian Ministry of Defense, 2 million Russians were reclassified as assault troops.
It is unlikely that he will simply be sent to guard this base, a strategic oil depot in Velikie Luki, or even somewhere else nearby. Instead, he can be sent directly to the dangerous front lines. This is due to one very simple reason. Because any person who ends up in the army today has almost no rights or protections whatsoever. Whatever the command wants, that's what will happen.
And as we know, the command wants only one thing: ever more and more batches of cannon fodder at the front.
Can reservists be sent to the front? They can. Can they be used to replace those in rear positions? They can. In principle, the reservists are a kind of resource that can be used in many situations. It's not necessary to send them directly to the front. They can be used to constantly create tension, for example, on the western borders by conducting various exercises.
At the same time, as analysts emphasize, preparations for a limited draft indicate a shortage of new volunteers. And so Putin is taking a risk and making an unpopular decision.
And this, as I understand it, is a kind of experiment. An experiment to see how people, specifically the members of this mobilization reserve, will react, how public opinion will respond, and so on and so forth.
But regardless of how society reacts, there is still no talk of a general mobilization in Russia at this time. According to experts, the Kremlin is unlikely to decide on a new wave of mobilization, at least in the near future. The previous one, launched in 2022, caused too much discontent. However, just in case, men have already started leaving Russia en masse.
Migrants versus traditional Russians. Passions are running high, and the level of hatred is simply off the charts. The so-called Russian community is also adding fuel to the fire of hostility. Here are the details. Putin declared 2026 the year of national unity in Russia.
But what was the most important thing? We hold a profound and endless sense of respect for all of those diverse groups of people who have historically become an integral part of Russia. We offer our complete respect for their rich cultural heritage and their traditions, as well as for their deeply held spiritual values.
Meanwhile, interethnic conflicts continue in Russia. Migrants threw a stone at State Duma Deputy Matveev, and now they face more than 10 years in a high-security prison.
I personally witnessed a scene where 3 young guys, 2 Tajiks and 1 Uzbek, were violently beating a man with heavy wooden sticks. We immediately pulled over and stopped our vehicle in order to put a definitive end to this, let's say, completely unlawful and violent act. My driver had his collarbone broken and I got my head smashed with a stone, yes.
State Duma deputies are outraged that Russia spends too much on migrants. We need to take away their right to housing, education, and free health care, and not allow them to send large sums of money back home, use them exclusively as slaves, and let them send back only the pennies they've earned.
We lost 81 billion rubles because of migrants, and if you count the shadow economy and unpaid taxes, our regions have missed out on about 429 billion rubles. And as a priority, we are proposing a ban on the patent system. The principle of the 3 Ps: arrived, worked, said goodbye.
Deputy Delyagin went even further. After the scandal in the Penza region, where the mayor dared to allocate housing to non-Slavic citizens of Russia, Delyagin stated that apartments should be forbidden to Muslims because of their immoral values.
I will send my inquiry, including a request to check the allocation of housing in general to hard-working compatriots who tirelessly enrich us culturally with their traditional values. Because polygamy, just like the rape of children, from a certain point of view, is also a traditional value.
But the Muslims themselves are not lagging behind either. The commander of the Kadyrovites, Alodinov, explains why Russians cannot marry Chechen girls.
500,000 people ask the same question every day. Why can't a Chechen woman marry a Russian? Wait a minute. First of all, who even knows that you are Russian or who you are? Who are you anyway? Instead of constantly shouting about how bad the Chechens are, it's the Russians who should be advised to return to their own traditions.
The TikTok warriors of Kadyrov's Akhmat are whining again, complaining that yet another blogger from the Russian community has encroached on their non-existent honor and is slandering them on social media.
We are Russians, Tatars, Chechens, Ossetians, Azerbaijanis, Georgians, Armenians, Avars, Kazakhs, Belarusians, Kalmyks, and many others. We fight and die, suffer severe wounds in the special military operation for the interests of our multinational, native, beloved country, Russia. We ask the Prosecutor's Office, the Investigative Committee, the Federal Security Service, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia to hold Max Divnich accountable, as he incites interfaith and interethnic hatred on his Telegram channel.
Discrimination also continues in everyday matters. In addition to rudeness on public transport and in public places, so-called non-Russians are also refused housing.
My name is Nursultan. So I am a Russian citizen and my friend is a citizen of Kyrgyzstan. Will that be a problem?
Today, the people who are supposed to come to us should take a look.
We can also come and take a look?
I am not quite sure, but maybe the people who come to see us will agree.
Well, I guess we'll see how things go today, so yeah. No, that won't work. No, obviously it won't work.
When I call realtors, I always realize that I need to approach it with a certain strategy. I have a strategy for making sure I get the apartment. First, the first step in the plan is to say as many words as possible on the phone before giving my name so that the realtor remembers that I speak without an accent. He needs to remember this, because if I say my name right away, he'll imagine an accent no matter what. If I say, hello, my name is Idrak, then all he'll hear after that is, I want an apartment.
But of course, all conflicts are forgotten when it comes to war. At the front, they draft everyone and as many as possible, and naturally, the newcomers are prioritized.
That's our trend too, since we started it. We grab them during raids, register them, and send them off. Some go, as I already mentioned, about 10,000 have gone, but many also slip away.
So no matter how much Putin preaches about national unity, interethnic hatred in Russia is only growing, which, oddly enough, is constantly fueled by Putin's own inner circle. The US Supreme Court has overturned all of Trump's customs tariffs. But in fact, the court ruled that the tariffs previously imposed by Trump against the entire world violate federal law in the United States, since, according to US legislation, the authority to impose tariffs belongs to Congress. Trump is outraged by the Supreme Court's decision. He called it a disgrace and stated that he has a backup plan. According to Trump, the Supreme Court has only banned one of the mechanisms for imposing tariffs. He says he will use other mechanisms.
Today I will sign an order to introduce a 10% global tariff under Section 122, on top of our regular tariffs already being collected. We are also launching several investigations under Section 301 and others to protect our country from unfair trade practices by other countries and capitals.
The order to introduce a global 10% tariff on goods from all countries, which Trump announced, will take effect on February 24th. Europe has begun joint production of drones and ballistic weapons with Ukraine. Strikes deep in the Russian rear demonstrate how successful the development of Ukraine's defense industry has been. New aid from Europe, improvements in domestic production, and panic among the Russians. We will tell you all about it in our report.
Putin wants the war to continue, which is why strikes on Russia persist. Russia keeps burning, and that's because Ukraine knows how to respond to aggression. Moreover, it continues to develop the very means with which it delivers retaliatory strikes. As it has become known, Ukraine, together with Germany, has developed a new drone from Quantum Systems. This is the RAD target drone, which was already demonstrated during the visit of the Ukrainian delegation to the first Ukrainian-German joint production facility.
An unmanned target drone is frequently utilized to rigorously evaluate the operational capabilities of sophisticated air defense systems, whether they are newly developed technologies, or if the goal is to confirm the specific performance characteristics of systems already in service. They are used to conduct exercises and to train new personnel for air defense systems. Again, newcomers who take their seats at an anti-aircraft self-propelled system, or even an anti-aircraft missile system, or an anti-aircraft missile and gun system ZRPK, need to practice striking at some kind of moving target.
The tactical and technical specifications are still being kept secret, but it is known that the drone will be launched from a catapult and equipped with a jet engine capable of reaching speeds of up to 450 kilometers per hour. And according to experts, it is very likely that it will also be able to carry a combat payload, which already changes the purpose of the drone itself.
First and foremost, it is important to recognize that this is primarily a target drone. However, as we have observed many times in recent conflicts, these target drones have frequently been equipped with sophisticated combat payloads. Consequently, they have been able to be utilized directly as effective strike elements on the battlefield. Therefore, taking all of this into account, I certainly do not rule out the distinct possibility that the RAD drone is actually a highly versatile and multifunctional drone system. This system serves not only as a primary target for domestic production within various European countries, specifically including nations like Germany and others in the region, but it can also be effectively utilized to mount a sophisticated combat payload. Furthermore, it is capable of being deployed to carry out precision strikes at medium ranges against strategic objectives. In other words, this is a drone designed to impact the enemy's medium-range rear area, either in temporarily occupied territories or on the territory of the Russian Federation. This payload could be 10 kilograms, 20, 30, 50, or even a full 100 kilograms. Accordingly, any drone target could eventually, at some point in the foreseeable future, even become a fully functional strike drone.
Ukraine continues to develop its technologies and defense industry. And as has already become known, as many as 10 factories for the production of Ukrainian drones will open in Europe this year. That's why we will increasingly see retaliatory strikes against Russia, but it's not just about drones. On January 11th, the British authorities announced their intention to create a powerful ballistic missile called Nighthawk specifically for Ukraine. The statement from the British government indicated that the new ballistic missile can carry a 200-kilogram warhead and has a range of 500 kilometers. And these are just the initial figures. As stated by the UK Minister for the Armed Forces, London is firmly determined to provide Ukrainians with more weapons.
A safe Europe needs a strong Ukraine. These new British long-range missiles will allow Ukraine to stay in the fight and will make Putin worry.
But Nighthawk is not the only missile being prepared for delivery to Ukraine. 6 European countries are creating another new cruise missile. Germany, France, Britain, Italy, Poland, and Sweden have signed an agreement for its development. According to Western sources, this project is known as OBUE 500+. The price for such a missile will be below market value. Moreover, the new systems are supposed to be intelligent enough to reach Western targets without manual control. Who exactly, Ukraine or Russia, has the advantage in drone missiles is still hard to say. But what is known is that the Kremlin clearly did not expect such resistance from the Ukrainians, even in the 4th year of the war.
With our defensive actions, we are simply exhausting the Russian occupation forces at the tactical, operational, and operational tactical levels. Although as of today, and in fact even since 2025, the Russian Federation has not demonstrated any success at the operational tactical level at all. Furthermore, even when we look closely at their offensive actions, specifically their major offensive, the summer offensive campaign of this year, failed to provide any clear demonstration that the Russian military forces were able to effectively cover the vast range of strategic areas in the regions across Ukraine, that would have allowed them to successfully break through the established Ukrainian defensive positions, cause a total collapse of our organized defense, or manage to achieve any other significant tactical breakthroughs penetrating deeper into our defensive lines. No, nothing of the sort. They moved very slowly through the forest belts, across the fields, through villages that had been destroyed, practically reduced to ashes. Nothing on a global scale. And in principle, Ukraine now holds a dominant position as a country occupying defensive positions.
The exhaustion of the Russians is happening not only at the front but also in the rear. After all, as we have already seen, strikes on Russia's vulnerable points have not stopped. Ukraine is maximizing both partner assistance and its own defense industry. The Flamingo is already destroying the largest ammunition depots in the Russian rear. Ukrainian Flamingos are also striking at training grounds, for example, Kapustin Yar, from which Russia launches Oreshnik. Here's how the Flamingo flies. Oil refineries, factories, and military units are burning. The Ukrainian Sapsan missile system with ballistic missiles has entered mass production and systematic use. And here is the range of the Sapsan. Moreover, according to some expert assessments, the Sapsan has an advantage in speed over the American Attack-MS, and it can easily strike Moscow. Some sources claim that Ukraine is already using these missiles, but information about where and how remains classified. Let's not forget about the Storm Shadow and HIMARS, which, according to Russian television, are supposedly being destroyed in batches, but that's not really the case. HIMARS are still hitting the power plants. And the Russian panic is most visible on Russian TV because even there they've started talking about how strong the Ukrainians are.
If Ukraine, just imagine for a moment, retains its current government after the conflict ends, then this army will remain as well. Europe is rearming this army and Ukraine is being taken. European Union. Believe me, in 5 years, the European Union will not be ruled by Germany, nor France, nor any Italy, Poland. Who else is there? Ukraine will rule there. Moreover, she will do this with full understanding that it is her Ukrainian army if desired. If it sweeps across the whole of Europe, and absolutely no French, no German, nor any other powerful army will ever be able to stop it.
The demilitarization that Putin so desperately wanted to carry out in Ukraine has failed spectacularly. Now strikes on Russian territory have become more frequent and more powerful because Ukraine knows how to respond to aggression. That's all from me. Please like this video and don't forget to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so we don't lose touch with you on YouTube. See you next time.